Good morning, everyone. My name is Castro from KNX International. And today we'll be presenting how the KNX technology has evolved in the last 30 plus, so 34 years. Sorry that I'm doing this presentation in English, but I do not speak Polish, unless you prefer me that I can do it in Spanish if you like. Otherwise, I take to English. Right, so I really want to show you in the slides today. What I want to show you is how the technology has evolved in the last years. But of course, we had some principles, and this is what since the very beginning we really kept in mind, which is most important to be the interworking feature of devices. Interworking is a step further to connectivity, to interoperability, which guarantees in a common installation several devices from different manufacturers to be communicating together. Then we also had the premise of keeping one tool for the professionals making KNX installations. There is one tool, which is ETS. And with ETS, you can configure every KNX device that has been certified by the certification department. There was also, in the very beginning, was also a pillar of neutral training. The same training courses are conducted in Poland or in Spain, Argentina, China, wherever it is. So every professional of KNX is using a similar knowledge to create KNX installations. And last but not least, of course, we have been always creating an official KNX specification that has been submitted to the standardization bodies for worldwide standardization. And in this, we've been approved in several countries as well as internationally approved as an international standard for home and building automation. How we started it actually was in the very beginning around the 90s. We had the foundation of an organization in Belgium. So Belgium still is the capital of Europe, and therefore at that time the EIB association was established in Brussels. The technology was then specified with one communication through transmission medium, which was twistor pair at that time. And it was a technology to configure devices in new build and in commercial buildings, where we had the first certification scheme for products with few products only on the market. And then we wanted to make sure that since the very beginning, all these products, they could be certified with this same certification scheme and configure, as I mentioned before about ETS, and ETS 1.0 was also released in 1992. So now we have few products on the market. We have few members, only 12 members at that time in 1990. And these products, they could talk together, being from different companies, which was something that we never did before. So now was the point. So with the time, we moved to so we evolved with the work. So we had 10 more years to come then, and in 2020, in the year 2000, we started this convergence process of KNX. So now we had the official foundation of what we call today KNX Association, with the official release of the KNX specifications 1.0. And also at this time, we launched new transmission medium. In particular, was the KNX radio frequency, a wireless communication using, in Europe, in this case, was a very important bandwidth in Europe, was 868 megahertz. Also, after the year 2000, also we had the release of ETS3. So you can see from the community numbers that I had at the bottom of this slide, what you can see is that now we move from having 12 members, we move to 84 members. Then we also had training centers officially conducting KNX basic courses around the globe, with more than 100 KNX training centers around the globe. And we had partners also presenting attending the KNX training courses with more than 8,071 8,700 partners. And already we reached the number of 2,500 certified KNX devices. And then we come to 2007. 2007 was very important for us, not only because KNX was approved as an international standard already by that time, but is the year that we introduced the KNX IP. That is the KNX IP communication introduced at this time. Of course, that time it was based on the IPv4. So it was with the KNX transmission medium, what we call this medium of communication, or this way of communicating, we call it KNX Net IP. This was when we were able to communicate via IP for the first time by tunneling the KNX Telegram. It was encapsulated with IP headers, and then it could be for the first time sent over IP. And in addition to this, so we had the new release of ETS4 in 2010, where we could already have this KNX Net IP communication for configuration of devices via using ETS at that time, and also the configuration of IPv4 devices. And we also, during this time, we also did the release of the KNX specifications 2.0. As you can see, with the time, we've been extending the KNX communication from twisted pair to IP. And this at this time, so in 2013, is when we also see the need of releasing the KNX secure specifications. So it was very important now that we had to guarantee a KNX secure communication, and also we need to encrypt the user information that was sent at that time. With this in mind, so we released the KNX secure specifications, which was with a double mechanism for security. As I mentioned just now, so we had this useful information that has to be encrypted, and for this we use the AES-128. So, which is for your understanding would be same as a bank is using for a bank transfer. So this is the same level of encryption, and that is of the useful information that is sent onto the bus. On top of this, we also did an encryption of the Telegram itself, so that when it's sent on the bus, it was also encrypted. And with this double mechanism, we guarantee a secure communication. In addition to this, at this time, we had the release of ETS5. And you can see how since the time that we started in 1990 until today, there is already a big growth of the KNX community. So we have more than 300 members already part of the KNX association. We had more than 250 KNX training centers, and we reach already 50,000 KNX partners that they attend KNX basic courses around the globe. We also had almost triple the amount of certified KNX devices, with more than 7,000 devices available on the market. And as you can see in the big pictures, you can see that there is already how the ecosystem of KNX getting bigger and bigger, with not only twisted pair, but we had the radio frequency and then the IP possibilities for communication, as well as VPN connection to guarantee the secure communication of ETS. Last but not least, what is the most important, or what it brings the most important subjects today, is about IoT. So we, of course, had to keep on working and evolving the KNX technology with the expansion of the KNX IoT communication. So in the year from 2020, we had this big push to create a KNX communication where we could already include the KNX IoT communication, or KNX IoT technology. With the KNX IoT, we had native KNX devices, IP devices, that they use IPv6, and it's what we call KNX IoT Point API. So with this way, what we can have is pure devices that they can connect directly to IP, and then come to have communication with any other KNX device that can be on a KNX network. So there is then what we are doing is we are integrating natively the IP networks into KNX as well, so that the infrastructure of KNX becomes much bigger. This is for the first time as well. It is now with KNX IoT specifications. It is also the release of the first time KNX open source stack. So, and this is the first time that we do, and we put it, you can freely download for those that they are developers of KNX IoT devices. And that makes us also to have the need to consider a new release of ETS, which is the release of ETS6. And how KNX IoT will be part of it, it's part of the next presentation by my colleague Michael, who is also with us today being here. There are already our KNX members are of course working on KNX IoT devices. They already presented some prototypes, and the first devices you will find them at the KNX booth next year at Light & Building in Frankfurt. So if you are visiting us, you will see the KNX devices there, KNX IoT devices there. In addition to the KNX IoT devices point API, we have also released, we have also worked on KNX IoT third-party API. With the third-party API, what we do is an easy way to integrate non-KNX devices into a KNX installation. So we can now bring devices like, for instance, Sonos, or devices like Hue from Philips. We can bring these devices into the KNX ecosystem. And that facilitates also because for the first time, we are also using a non-KNX jargon. So it's more IT language. So developers are able to understand, thanks to the semantics, also work in progress for us, but they are able to better understand how it works a KNX communication. And for now, developers, they can bring in literally in 2-3 weeks time, they will be able to bring non-KNX solutions into a KNX ecosystem. This is why the KNX IoT third-party API is so important today, because it's giving us the possibilities to expand more the KNX ecosystem. These are, from the technical point of view, these are the technology enhancements we have done. And that brought few results to us. So the very first important result for us today, that it comes today, it is, of course, that KNX has become the largest industry ecosystem. So thanks to the KNX IoT, we have expanded the technology so that we are able now to have, and we can connect to the non-KNX solutions or devices, as I mentioned before. So we open now the door also to have services as part of a KNX solution. It is an open source technology, and of course the devices are coming up now to the market. So as I just said before, yes, if you come to Light & Building, you will see them at the booth. There is a new wave of companies also coming to us, which is the startups. They now got engaged or interested, like saying, okay, with the KNX IoT solutions now, the KNX IoT technology, I can also bring IoT devices to the KNX. So they are calling at our door to be part of the KNX, which is one strong pillar that guarantees the future of KNX. I also mentioned before about the cybersecurity. So I mentioned before about the double mechanism that KNX has thanks to the KNX Secure, and that this has already brought more than 400 KNX Secure devices to the market. So our members are putting their best effort to guarantee the new products, they comply with the KNX Secure standard. Also, of course, for the new KNX IoT devices, Secure comes by design already. It's part of the specifications, and the KNX IoT devices are secure already by default. And of course, because we consider it's very important, not only that KNX Secure devices are available on the market, but also that the professionals, they can learn and they can train themselves in the best secure features and opportunities on the market. So we also release guidelines and training courses for the professionals so that the KNX solutions eventually are the most secure solutions in smart home, smart buildings. This may to have a second strong pillar of the KNX technology. And last but not least, our members and also professionals, they realize about the importance of energy management and the importance of optimizing the energy in homes and buildings, in reducing the use of the energy and reducing also the CO2 footprint in homes and buildings or generated from homes and buildings. And therefore, there is an important demand by end customers and requesting more energy efficient solutions by professionals, that they are moving not only from doing lighting control, for instance, to really considering now energy management application into their projects, and as well by our manufacturers and developers, because they are releasing and they are deploying more smart energy devices to the market. So this is something that we have seen, and our members are also delivering more products to the market on this field. And this is also a strong pillar for us, and this is why our association is still making a lot of efforts to guarantee that energy management is an application that can be carried out by professionals in a smart home and smart buildings, and therefore our third pillar. That has also, as a result of all the efforts and evolution of the KNX technology, we have a community, which is an international community with more than 500 manufacturers around the globe, present in 47 countries, that have released a total of, or well, not a total, but more than 8,000 certified devices to the market. There are almost 120,000 KNX certified partners on the market as well. And these partners are scattered in more than 180 countries in the world, which makes that we find and we receive KNX projects from almost every country in the world today. So definitely this workforce of professionals around the globe, it guarantees that our technology is going to be very strong everywhere in the next years to come. There are more than 500 KNX training centers offering KNX courses also in more than 71 countries, and more than 176 scientific partners, universities, that they are also making KNX research projects in different universities or in different research centers. Officially, we are present in 45 countries with 45 national groups, so that they help us in creating these the projects and to make marketing campaigns and to increase the visibility, like KNX Poland is organizing this conference today. And the test labs, they help in certifying all these more than 8,000 products that they've been already presented to certification. And last but not least, of course, we have sold our ETS license in almost all the countries where we find KNX partners, of course. So this is how the community has become such a big international community after 34 more years. And what's more to come is the need that we have seen. We have seen a big need to create not just a strong technology that is sustained of the three pillars of IoT and cybersecurity and energy management. This is, of course, very important, but we realize about the needs. Our technology can help in creating a more sustainable world by creating more meaningful projects that they can save energy, that they can make an optimized use of energy for a greener smart homes and greener smart buildings, and therefore more sustainable cities. Because we need, and we are fully aware that we have to create, and we have to help creating a more sustainable world. And this is something our technology can do, and we are very much focused in making this step, this extra mile, in taking this extra mile in the next years to come, so that energy efficiency or sustainability is going to be now from now on, it will be our main and most important subject to have in mind in the next years to come. So we are really looking forward to do that now, together with our members, together with the professionals, with the national groups, and together, all together, to create this in the mindset of everybody in the world. And that is from my side what I wanted to share with you today. So it is a pleasure to be with you. If you have any questions about my presentation or general anything about KNX, these slides I will share it with the national group so that you can have them, and feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you very much for your time.
I don't know if we can hear it, but
Thank you, Damian. Thanks. And thank you, Tomasz. So if you have any questions, are there any questions for me?
Pytania do tej części? Nie widzę. No, we can go on to the second part.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. Okay. You can hear me, everyone? Okay. Good. I'll share my screen. Give me a second. Thanks, Casto.
Thank you, Michael.
Lost you. One moment. Where are you gone? Okay, I can see you. Well, my name is Michael. Nice to meet you all, even though it's remote. Unfortunately, I couldn't come see you in person. I understand the room is full. That is good to hear. I cannot see your faces nodding, but I hope everyone can hear me, even in the back of the room. So if not, let Damien know so that we can correct that. I'll jump right in. I have a little bit of what has been, where we are, and where we are going. So I thank Casto for giving a history of what already was in the past before I joined the association. Yeah, I have some agenda. So like I said, the current status, something we call the autumn release. I hope you know about this already. Features next year, features in 2025. What I'm planning as an ETS strategy, something on network security. I hope you are on topic there, and discussion. So I jump right in. The current state. I know you all love ETS 6. So that was a joke. I know there's an opinion in the room. So ETS 6.00 was released in September 2021, and we are aware in the association that ETS 6 introduced a lot of changes. We made changes to the archive folders, we made changes to the modes, we made changes to the catalog and the diagnostics. We moved that into the project, and there were good reasons to do that. But of course, it changed how you use ETS 6. And so, of course, changes always different, always difficult. So the appreciation of ETS 6 was, let's say, limited. We also introduced a lot of extensions to ETS 6. We introduced the segment couplers, we introduced the secure proxy, but there were no products. So who needed that, right? So why ETS 6? And then with the first version of the software, like ETS 6.00, we also had a lot of bugs. We know that. We had bugs in the dashboard tiles. We had a lot of errors with the signing up, with the licensing, and with the general operation of ETS 6. So version 6.00 had a lot of bugs. Let's agree on that. And so with a buggy software and with a software that has benefits that you don't need, and with changes that you are not used to, of course, the appreciation for ETS 6 was very limited. Well, since September 2021, we've had 7 releases, even 8 releases, including last week, where we introduced more functionality, but we focused mostly on fixing these bugs. We wanted to make sure that ETS 6, after the first release, after a first flawed release, was improving, that we closed these bugs, we improved performance. And that's also why, since last year, we have a full-time tester of ETS here in the Brussels office. And we are decreasing we see that actually the number of support cases is decreasing. Now, last week, we released ETS 6.1.1, which is the 8th release of ETS 6. And I guess the biggest concern of ETS 6.1.0 was that we removed the panel closing button. Well, I can tell you now, I hope you know this already, the panel closing button is back. That's the first one up top. We had another concern, and that was the licensing and the signing in into ETS. Also there, we have improved the situation. We hope these bugs are gone now. From what our testing shows, the bug is solved. We have improved how licensing works. This should also bring a lot of changes, a lot of benefits to the user. And most importantly, we have introduced the support for KNX RF Multi. So you will see now coming to the market very soon support for KNX RF Multi devices. I hope you saw my release video. If you didn't, there's the QR code. So go watch that. So I don't have to go into too much detail now, because otherwise I would just be listing the features here. So the video is much more exciting. Because the fourth point here, the assignment of individual addresses by using serial numbers, this will make a difference to your workflow. Because if you do scan QR codes for the devices and you have them into your project, you don't actually have to go to the device and press the programming button. So depending on the size of the project, this might actually save you a lot of time. We have, as part of the IoT process, we have introduced the semantic export, but more and more of that will become usable next year. We include some more context by using functions. You might have seen the search folders. I'm not sure. I hope you did. And then some general changes. We show now again a counter for selected items. We make changes and improvements to the archive. We extend the diagnostic features. So I think in general, 6.1.1 introduced really a good number of beneficial features, and I'm looking forward to your feedback on that. So once more, here's the QR code to the YouTube video. That's the release video of ETS 6. I hope you go check it out. Now, what is to come? The year 2023 is almost over. One could say, hopefully, luckily. But what is coming next in February 2024 is the support for KNX IoT Point API. So like Casto said, this is the next evolution of the KNX standard. And with ETS being my responsibility, we are also, of course, supporting KNX IoT in ETS. Now, what does that mean for an ETS user? Right? We talked about IoT for a long time, for some number of years already. Well, what does that mean from an ETS perspective? Well, it's really just a new medium type. So we have twisted pair, as you know, we have radio frequency. In the past, we had power line. We had IPv4, right? So KNX Net IP. And now next year, we bring into ETS the IoT medium type. And you can see here on the bottom right, it behaves just like any other device in ETS. So you have a new topology type, the IoT line and area, and you can see here on the screenshot, I have a switching actuator, I have a push button. They also have physical addresses, they have parameters, they have communication objects. So from an ETS perspective, we try to keep everything as same as possible, as simple as possible. So from inside ETS, not much is changing, except that now you can also do IPv6 with KNX IoT. The biggest thing that will come here is that other than before, KNX IoT is secure from the start. So there is an inherited security. And of course, as you are used to with anything KNX, it is all compatible. So we keep our promise on backwards compatibility. You can connect an IPv6 device and a KNX IoT device with a power line device from 12 years ago, no problem. All being done from within ETS. Something I'm particularly looking forward to is smart linking, because smart linking will change how things are done in ETS. I go into here just to show you an example. For the last 30 years, KNX has been about communication objects and group addresses. So you connect communication objects with group addresses in between. This will not change because that is the fundamental principle of how KNX works. You need to be able to connect individual objects by group addresses. But what I want to do and what we will show next year is we abstract from that. So we go one level higher. And if a user doesn't need to look at COM objects, he can focus instead on channels. And so we will introduce functions into ETS to link a channel directly onto another channel. I've shown that here on the right-hand side. So imagine I have a push button in a room called Office, and I have a switching actuator in a room called Cabinet, in my cabinet. Both of these devices, they have channels. One of them is the left rocker on my push button, and on my switching actuator, I have a relay. So as you know, typically I would have to create two group addresses and I drag them after another. In the future, with channel-to-channel linking, you can drag directly the left rocker onto the relay and ETS takes care of the rest for you. It will create a function. The function will be, for example, the light switching in my office, and it will create the group addresses and it will link all of it for you. For that, we will not remove, of course, the group addresses. They are still there. So you can then continue your sophisticated customization. But as a first step, within a few seconds, you can create already the general functionality. Now with channel-to-channel linking and then also function-to-channel linking, we will change how ETS works, how quickly you can generate functionality. And I think we can all look forward to that. And we will display the first version of that at Light + Building next year. What else is coming to ETS? Well, you as system integrators, you know, of course, there is a great number of apps that deal from all the manufacturers that deal with firmware update. Now, also here, the KNX Association is making advancements. With the manufacturers, the KNX System Group is working on a native way of updating firmware update for KNX devices. And we will bring this support into ETS. So next year, at the end of next year, we will bring firmware update functionality into ETS without using all these different ETS apps that you are now familiar with. Something for the architects and the planners is the BIM import, so the building information model, because we see here this is becoming more and more popular, the BIM, and we want to allow the architects and the planners a way of integrating that into ETS. And then that's why it has 3 exclamation marks, more bug fixes, more improvements, more resilience, because that is important. It needs to work. And that's what we are focusing on. Now, constantly on the move, right? ETS and KNX constantly on the move. So what happens in 2025? Well, we will extend the focus on functions and device channels. We will bring more benefits for visualizations, for KNX IoT servers, for ETS workflows. So stay tuned. If you know KNX Secure, you know the little QR codes that you need to scan. And also here, the system group is investigating and developing and specifying how this FDSK workflow can be changed. And there is something exciting in the works so that we can make that workflow also easier. So stay tuned also here. And again, more and more bug fixes, because that is very dear to us. We want to make sure that ETS is resilient. Now we look already some years in the future, right? Not only what is coming next year, but what is coming the year after and what is happening in 5 years. So we are working on an ETS strategy. And the idea is to identify what is important to our users. So what is important to the system integrators, to the KNX partners that spend their entire days in ETS? and we want to investigate of streamlining processes, improving performance, and aligning the software, aligning ETS with what you really need. And so I ask you to join our participant pool, because we really, at the moment, we are planning and we are organizing these workshops, online events, to discuss and to figure out what it is that is really necessary for ETS, what is important. Because if we know, or when we know what is important, we can remove everything else. And so I ask you to scan the QR code, fill out the survey, so I have your contact details, and I will invite you to the workshops. Damien, I guess you can also share the slides afterwards, so everyone has the links in general, but take the chance already now. Now, there is a very important topic. I guess you know, every KNX installation nowadays needs to have remote access. That is on everybody's mind. Everyone wants to control the lights from remotely, even though the idea behind KNX is that the house controls itself. But a remote access is very, very important, has become very, very important in the last years. We see, unfortunately, that we have globally many thousands of IoT, many thousands of routers with configured port 3671 open. That is an issue, because port 3671 is our port. So we know that if a router has this port open, we know there is a KNX installation. So, and in many of these cases, the KNX installations don't use KNX Secure. So our recommendations are clear. Use KNX Secure. Close these ports. Use secure ways of connecting remotely. Use VPNs. Use programming logs if you have to. There's multiple solutions, but this is not news to you, right? You know this. You are KNX partners. You are the national group. So I wonder, why are these ports open? So the mission is clear. We need to get these ports closed, because this is just inviting hackers to destroy your properties, to destroy your installations. I have created here also, I have included here a QR code, because the association has created a tool that allows everyone to check their own installation. This only works for your current IP address, so it makes no sense to do this on your phone right now. But give this out to your customers. Give this out to your friends and family that have KNX installations, and have them all check if they have a port open. The tool then gives recommendations what to do to close the ports, but it's important to get the message out. These ports cannot remain open. This is a huge security risk. So again, Damien, that's a slide to share. But anyway, scan the QR code already now. Okay, good, thank you. Yeah, this topic is very insecure, let's say. It's insecure at the moment. Let's make it secure. That was it with my slides. So I know we reserved some time for some Q&A. So I have some topics here, some let's say some discussion starters. ETS 6. I only want to hear about bugs that we haven't closed yet, or how good you like it. KNX Secure, how it is progressing in Poland. The automatic bus interface, we have some comments here. When you're setting flags, manual filter table editing. So whatever you wanted to discuss, these are just some topic starters. So any questions, let me know. Otherwise, if you don't, you can also send me an email. That's also fine.
Na pytania. Tutaj Michael zrzucił pewne tematy do dyskusji. Od razu proszę, bo moja znajomość ETS-a jest, zakładam, dużo niższa albo prawie zerowa, więc proszę o proste pytania, a ja będę starał się najlepiej tłumaczyć, jak mogę.
Ja zapytam mniej więcej jak często planują wypuszczać kolejne wersje i kiedy będzie następna wersja usuwająca obecne błędy.
Okay, so as usual, the first question is, how often are you going to release updates, and when is the next update fixing the current bugs?
In February.
W lutym. Okay.
Dana lista aktualnych błędów, czy się można dostać?
Każdy ma swoje błędy.
Aktualnych błędów ETS-a
Aha.
i czy ją gdzieś można dostać, żeby wiedzieć, jakich błędów się oczekuje, co
Uważać.
Mhm.
zauważyć.
Okay, so their question is there something like a list of the most common bugs that are in the software now, so they know what to avoid and where to, like, if they have an issue, they know it's a known bug, not something that they're doing wrong?
Okay, there is not, but it's a good idea to talk about that. Yeah, indeed. It's most important to us to find these bugs because we can test as much as we want. There will always be things that our users find before us. So it's important for us to get these bugs reported to support@knex.org so that we can then focus on closing these with the next release. But there is not a public list yet with known bugs.
Czyli ja odpowiem, nie ma publicznie dostępnej takiej listy, ale jest to pomysł, który rozważą. Tam najpierw z tyłu.
No, czyli sprawdzenia, które były tutaj prezentowane, tak, linkowanie obiektów za pomocą strzały, tak, smart linking. Czy to mamy rozumieć, że to będzie część ETS-a, czy to będzie już ETS z kolejną wersją 7?
Znaczy z tego co ja zrozumiałem, to w tej najbliższej lutowej to już ma być aktualizacji, ale zaraz mogę spytać. The smart linking, is that going to be part of the February release or is that a future thing? Smart linking.
Smart linking. Sorry. Yeah, this will come at Light. So we will show this at Light & Building. It will not be in the February release,
Okay.
but it will be shown at Light & Building and will be part of the next release. So that is now targeting for August.
Nie, czyli to jest so it's ETS 6 release in August.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Czyli dalej w szóstce i prawdopodobnie w sierpniowej wersji. Okay, very big question with a big yes, it's a good question from everybody. A native Mac OS version of ETS.
It's not on the table for ETS 6, but we are, of course, receiving this request, let's say, on a weekly basis. And so we are really considering the options here. We cannot bring our current ETS on a Mac other than with virtual machine software. There are options, but all in all, this is either low performance or a huge effort. And so we are investigating what options we have. But it is on our list, yes.
Czyli jest na liście, natomiast bezpośrednie przeniesienie nie jest możliwe. Wiąże się to z bardzo wielkimi nakładami albo bardzo wielkim spadkiem wydajności. Zakładam, że testowali chyba tak, ponieważ tak jak powiedział, jest to pytanie, które dostają co tydzień. Okay. So basically the answer, well, since you're getting it weekly, maybe it's time to work. Okay.
No comment.
No comment. Z tamtej strony miałem jakieś pytania? Nie? Okay, PC users. Tomek, one second.
Już mogę? Jak w przyszłości ETS6 będzie się łączyć z tym portalem MyKNX? W sensie, jakie funkcje będą? Na przykład eksport projektu do chmury? Czy planujesz jakieś inne funkcje?
Okay. So are you planning any additional functionality, for example, with connecting ETS6 to the MyKNX cloud-wise?
You mean to not lose projects anymore?
Export projects, yes.
Yeah. This is being investigated. As you know, I don't need to tell this to you. Our KNX or ETS projects sometimes are very, very large. We have ETS projects up to several hundred megabytes. We cannot synchronize these to MyKNX. And that's why in the background, we are working on reducing the file sizes. This is a process. We need another schema update for this, but all in all, this is on our list. So we are reducing the file sizes. We are making MyKNX more secure with multi-factor authentication, all as a step towards being able to not lose projects anymore.
Jakby generalnie idea jest taka, że na tą chwilę projekty są zbyt duże, żeby je bezpośrednio tam wrzucać. No po prostu niektóre są po kilkaset mega. Generalnie jakby plan jest taki, żeby po pierwsze stworzyć procedurę, która i jakby cały schemat, który spowoduje, że te pliki będą znacznie mniejsze. Jak te pliki już zaczną być znacznie mniejsze, to wtedy zastanowić się, jak zrobić rozwiązanie chmurowe, żeby projekty nie ginęły. Tak, z tyłu pytanie.
Takie pytanie do przyszłej wersji ETS-a. Czy nie rozważają wersji chmurowej, która byłaby wtedy oderwana od sprzętu, którym dysponujemy i systemy? Czyli Linux, Mac OS, wersje tabletowe systemów.
Maybe it's on your list, but the question is for future ETS versions, not like 7, 8, whatever. Are you thinking about a cloud version, a totally system independent cloud version?
No comment.
Well, that could solve the whole, Mac OS, Windows, tablets, Android, whatever.
You know, ETS6 is a step in the evolution, going all the way back to ETS1, and ETS6 has grown to a size that can simply not be transported into a browser. So part of these workshops that we are conducting is to figure out what is important for an everyday user. Because only then do we know also what do we need to support in a future version. And only then can we decide also to go into direction of a cloud. This is being discussed, this is being investigated, but there's multiple steps we need to take beforehand. One of those being reducing the project sizes, so we can even think about synchronization. But all in all, yes, of course, we know the topic. We know that a cloud version of ETS would bring many benefits, but it would also create some pitfalls because of importing, exporting, sharing, and so it is something that is being evaluated.
Generalnie jakby pierwsza odpowiedź była bez komentarza, natomiast jest to do przemyślenia. Też między innymi dlatego jest to zaproszenie Was przez te QR-kody, które tam były w prezentacji do warsztatów, bo na tych warsztatach jakby są zadawane pytania, co jest najważniejsze, na czym mają się skupiać, w którą stronę iść. I oczywiście stworzenie chmurowej wersji by rozwiązało bardzo wiele problemów, ale na dzień dzisiejszy mogłoby też bardzo wiele problemów stworzyć. Więc pytanie, czy jest to jakby najważniejszy element, na którym się w tym momencie skupiać? Okay. Nie zabija się posła. Dalej. Jeszcze jakieś pytania?
Otherwise, I have a question too.
Okej. To mamy pytanie, Michaela? Yes.
How is KNX Secure is KNX Secure being used in Poland? So maybe you can ask for hands up to give me a feeling of percentage.
Okej. To teraz odwracamy i padło pytanie, kto używa, stosuje zawsze i wszędzie KNX Secure? Ręce w górę. No ale tam, gdzie się da. Zaraz odpowiem. Okej, ale na razie miało być ręce w górę, kto używa. Tak, bo...
So
Well,
how many is that? I see two
a
hands.
lot.
Okay.
A lot
Well,
of hands, yes.
we do see, or we did see this year a lot of new KNX Secure devices coming to the market, especially especially this year. A lot of them being certified this year, a lot of them coming to the market. So we do see more and more KNX secure capable devices in ETS projects. So I believe we will also in the immediate future, we will see more and more secure installations. And I think that's a good thing, which is also why we did this new feature of assignment of individual address via serial number, because this will become more and more present in ETS. It's good to get a feeling. Thank you.
Okej,
To nie jest jedno tego bardzo.
ale znaczy dobra, ale znaczy jakie jest pytanie? Jest komentarz. Okej.
Ciężko mieć włączonego KNX, jeżeli urządzenie, które musi widzieć w zasadzie wartości wszystkich adresów, których nie obsługuje tego KNX.
Serwer wizualizacyjny z KNX Secure. Tak można odpowiedzieć.
Dzięki Tom. So basically, the idea is that a comment from the room that it's very hard, for example, when you want to have a secure devices, use KNX Secure, but the visualization server that is supposed to see all the values does not support KNX Secure.
Yeah.
So maybe the idea is forcing more the producers, the manufacturers to have visualization servers supporting KNX Secure, and then everybody would be using it more frequently.
Yeah, I do see that, or I do wish that this problem solves itself, because more devices come to the market that are secure. And as soon as you have a full installation that is secure, also the visualizations from these manufacturers will become supportive of KNX Secure. It is typically, we typically have a limited, let's say in how manufacturers design their products, but KNX Secure is becoming more and more relevant. And so we see also these products now.
Oni polecają jakieś narzędzia tego zadaj pytanie.
So the one more questions about the tools to check about the port 3761. Yeah, do you
Yes.
have any special tool to check it is it open or not? Because you know, in plenty installations we have the same situation as you mentioned about.
Yeah. So the tool, or let's say there's only one way, or there's two ways of checking this. Either you are the network administrator, and you can of course check your network infrastructure if this port is open. But typically the end customer doesn't know this. And that's why we created this tool, so that everyone can directly follow this link and ask the tool to do the check. Because it works the way that the tool checks your IP address, and then it sends out a KNX Net IP description request to your IP address, to port 3671. And ideally, your router simply ignores this because the port is closed. But in the worst case, your router lets it through, and the tool, our tool, gets a response from your KNX Net IP interface. And then the tool knows, okay, that's your device, and it gives you some recommendations how to close the port. But so this is the tool basically.
Czy on sprawdza tylko port 3671, czy jakieś inne również?
So it's just a quick question. This checks only 3671, or does it check anything else?
This only checks 3671 and only on your current IP address.
Znaczy, coraz większy będzie problem z instalacjami, które są przyjmowane przez innych instalatorów, jeżeli mamy IP Secure. Często z różnych powodów właściciele rozstają się z integratorami i brak bazy danych powoduje, że szczególnie w Secure będzie powodował, że te instalacje będą nieserwisowane w jakikolwiek sposób. Czy jest jakiś plan właśnie na to, żeby właściciele mogli się mieć właśnie miejsce, gdzie mają bazę danych, którą mogą pobrać wraz z życiem budynku i na jakich zasadach mogłoby to funkcjonować?
To jest, znaczy ja mogę zadać to pytanie, natomiast to jest coś, co jest rozwiązane, nie widzę Tomka, ale...
Będziemy na tym dyskutować.
Tak, to w Hiszpanii właśnie coś takiego funkcjonuje,
Nie do końca.
ale nie do końca, ale Ale mogę zadać, okay.
Tak.
There's basically, okay, with KNX Secure.
Znaczy nie tylko secure, ale szczególnie secure będzie,
Okay.
czym będzie więcej secure.
Especially with secure, with more secure coming, the situation is going to get worse where for some reason there is a split between the integrator and the owners of the house. They don't have the project or history, and there will be zero possibility to service the installation as it is by a new integrator. So are you thinking about some form of, again, tool, cloud thing, service, where you can store everyone's projects?
Yes, well, yes, we are. But again, this of course only works if the initial integrator puts the project there. And that's the same as now the system integrator giving the project to the end customer. If both is not happening, this cannot work. And it's part of our guideline on knx.org that this is part of the process, part of the contract between a customer and an integrator. This project needs to be handed over, and it needs to be made clear to the customer that this project is something important, right? We can and we are investigating of offering services here, but if the system integrator does not fulfill this part of the service and does not hand over the project, there's not much we can do. So this is a legal, let's say a legal requirement, right? If there's a customer contract signed, this is part of it.
Generalnie jakby odpowiedź jest taka, jakby problem jest troszkę inny. Problem jest w dalszym ciągu z tym integratorem pierwszym, bo czy zrobimy to na zasadzie przekazania projektu na pendrive, płycie CD czy taśmy magnetycznej, nie ma znaczenia. Jeśli nie przekazał, to nie przekazał. Równie dobrze może nie załadować do chmury i oni go nie będą widzieli i nie będą mieli żadnej możliwości cofnięcia.
Tak, ale czy z punktu widzenia prawa europejskiego czy innego, ten program, który uruchomiony został przez integratora, jest własnością integratora, czy jest własnością klienta, który go kupi, jeśli chodzi o prawa własności intelektualnej?
Generalnie w zakresie tym jest w guidelinach, w dobrych praktykach, we wszystkich zapisach. Okej, ale już pytam o legalność, bo to odpowiedział. Jakby we wszystkich praktykach. Mhm.
Bo różnie prawicy, różnie się wypowiadają. Ja wiem, jakie są odpowiedzi, ale chciałbym znać odpowiedź.
Okay. So the question is like, okay, now is there, because you have it, like you said, in your guidelines, in the good practices, in the standards to hand over the project to the client. Now,
Yeah.
is there some binding legal statement or an opinion, a binding legal opinion that states how are the rights to the project, are they customers or are they integrators?
Well, I cannot speak globally. There is, so the ETS project is part of the delivery. So based on that, yes, when this contract is fulfilled, the project needs to be handed over. I'm not sure about any differentiating laws globally, but that is our statement for this.
Okay, but is there
project is part of the delivery.
Ale czy mogą to sprawdzić z prawnikami w Brukseli, jeżeli chodzi o prawo już europejskie, czy intelektualne?
But on the intellectual level, can you get as KNX some binding opinion for European Union that will say in the EU law it states that if the project is finished, the customer has to get the project, otherwise it's, you know, it's breach of some law.
Yeah, I'm sure we can find something, because in the end this is contractual law, and
Yeah.
if we agree that the project is part of the delivery, then it's part of the contract, and the contract needs to be fulfilled, and so the delivery needs to be made in full.
Because at the moment, the idea is that if you ask 5 lawyers, you get 5 opinions, but
Yeah.
you need
That,
I
I mean,
opinions.
that's lawyers. By the
But you need, but
by the point
if
you
you
need to
have
involve
it,
a lawyer.
if you have it somewhere on paper, it's
Yeah.
law number XYZ, then it's fixed.
The law doesn't bind itself about, or doesn't think about KNX, right? There is the project is part of the delivery, and the contractual law is very clear globally. But in the end, I guess once you need to involve lawyers, the situation has already gone bad. So in general, the project is part of the delivery. It needs to be handed over. I know that, for example, in KNX Switzerland, they have established some rules for them that the project is being handed over, but it is being locked for the first 2 years, or I think 3 years, I don't know. So there's a procedure there that KNX Switzerland made for themselves. And it involves handing over the project to the end customer, but keeping it locked for a certain amount of time, which is the guarantee that is given. But after that, it is the ownership of the end customer.
Jeszcze mamy jakieś pytania z sali? Nie widzę. Noszę się wyżej. Dalej nie widzę. Okay, I think we're done with the questions. So
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed the questions. I think Castro, you did too, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was nice.
everybody's clapping.
Thank you very
Good.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I mean, here's my email address. You can figure out Castro's email address. It's the same syntax. So let us know if you have questions. Also, if not today, later. Okay.
Jakiekolwiek pytania, jest kontakt do Michaela, można pisać w każdej sprawie.
I will send you the slides so you can share them around.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay. Great.
Congratulations
Thanks,
for
everyone.
your event. Congratulations.
indeed.
And thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Bye.